Hey guys, my name's Brent, and I've always wanted to start a channel and start talking about history since there's not any out there really. So the first one I wanted to do was William Wallace, since Braveheart is all about him and it's my favorite movie, so I was like, hey, let's give that a shot, you know. But first I want to dig deep in the background and get you up towards William Wallace. So the land right now is ruled by King Alexander III. The land is at peace and has economic stability, but he dies in March 19th of 1286 from falling from his horse. He only had one heir, and her name was Margaret, the Maid of Norway. And on her voyage over from Norway, she falls ill and then later dies in September 26th of 1290. This led families to fight for the claim of the throne. So the Scottish nobility decided to send King Edward I from England to settle this matter. He proclaimed himself as Lord Paramount of Scotland. They decided to hold a feudal court at Berwick-upon-Tweed, since Berwick was a Scottish border town. They figured that would be a great place to have it. And then in November of 1292, they picked John Bale for having the strongest claim. Edward then wanted Bale to stand before the English court as a common plaintiff. This would make Bale being a puppet to him pretty much. Late in the same year, Bale renounces his homage, and this makes Edward furious. In late March of 97, Edward storms and takes Berwick and keeps on defeating the Scottish. In July, Edward forced Bale to abdicate. He let his officers receive formal homage from 1,800 Scottish nobles. Alright, since that's the backup story, let me start talking about William Wallace. Unlike Braveheart, he pretty much looks like a common guy. He was actually born in a lesser nobility family. There's an argument about who his father is, but the most common one would be Malcolm of Elderslie. This is the most common to believe because a guy named Blind Harry wrote a poem about it in the late 15th century. Since he had older brothers, he was most likely raised to become a priest by monks. When Wallace became an adult, he was believed to be enormous, at least 6'6". Before he became a rebel, some historians believe that he might have been a mercenary bowman for the English while they were fighting Wales, because on his personal seal he had archer's insignia on it. This could also mean that he could have been a poacher trying to make a name for himself and some money. So when I was doing my research, I found this story that really stuck out to me, and I was like, I feel like sharing it maybe, yeah? So one day Wallace was fishing, and 5 English soldiers come up and order him to hand over his catch. He didn't feel like this was fair, so he offered him half. One was upset by this and pulls out his sword and lunges at Wallace. Wallace parries with his fishing pole, takes out his own sword, lops that guy's head off, and then kills 2 more, and then the other 2 run away and escape. The first act of his uprising is to believe when he assassinates William de Heselrigge in May of 1297. Heselrigge was the High English Sheriff of the North. Wallace and his men came into town in 1s and 2s, and then they met up. They attacked the English swiftly and quietly. Wallace went straight to Heselrigge's house, and while Heselrigge was in his bed, he chops his head off. In September 11th of 1297, Wallace and Andrew Moray joined forces to fight at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Moray was pretty successful already. He had his own raids going on and was doing a pretty good job. English was led by a guy named John de Warenne. He was the 6th Earl of Surrey. He led 3,000 cavalry and 8 to 10,000 infantry. While the English was sorting their army out to get ready to cross the bridge, they sent over peace terms at least 3 times, and every response was, "We have not come for peace, but to avenge our country." So they were like, well, I guess we're going to have to go and fight these Scots. While they were crossing the bridge, it was a really small bridge. They could only fit like 3 abreast getting over. And they took their time. They figured the Scottish would let them form up in their formations for battle once they got on the other side. But when the Scots believed that there was enough over, they came in and swooped down on them and just slaughtered them. And in Blind Harry's poem, it is stated that the overwhelming weight of the bridge made it collapse. And being vastly outnumbered, the Scottish routed the English army. One of the casualties on the English side was named Hugh Cressingham, which was Edward's treasurer in Scotland. They flayed him and cut his skin into small pieces as tokens of victory. And it is believed Wallace took a long piece from head to heel and made it into a baldric for his sword. which is like the belt that goes around your shoulder. After the victory, it raised the confidence of the Scots. Wallace and Moray were made guardians of the Kingdom of Scotland, but Moray died in November of 1297. While Moray was dying, Wallace led a full-scale assault on Northumberland and Cumberland. The English Chronicles says what Wallace did in their terms. Wallace burned monasteries and laughed as monks were drowned. He slaughtered women and burned schools while the children were in it. But, I mean, that was the English saying what happened, and who knows if that's true or not. On Wallace's return, he was knighted, and most likely it was by Robert the Bruce. Again, Edward gets all pissed off and wants to send more forces up, so he leads a second invasion by himself. The Scots shadowed them to avoid battles so they could run out of supplies and have to be forced going back to England. Edward soon received reports that the Scots were encamped by Halkirk and went to engage them. Wallace arranged his men into 4 schiltrons on top of a hill. Schiltrons are a circular formation that was fortified by driving sticks into the ground before the men, with ropes between. English had a great resource to take care of this problem. They used the Welsh longbow and showered arrows down upon them, and then used their cavalry to take out the Scots archers. During this, the Scottish knights just left. They just took off. With gaps in the schiltrons, the English rushed into them and crushed them. The Scots took a massive loss. They lost at least 10,000 men. But luckily, Wallace escapes, but he does suffer reputation. In September of 1298, Wallace resigns as the Guardian of Scotland. After, Wallace is believed to go to the court of King Philip IV of France for assistance. In 1304, Wallace returns to Scotland. He evades capture until August 5th of 1305. A guy by the name of John de Menteith, which was a Scottish knight, turned him into the English forces. The trial was at Westminster Hall in London. He was tried for treason and atrocities against civilians of war. He was crowned with a garland of oak to suggest he was the king of outlaws. His response was, "I could not be a traitor to Edward. I was not his subject." August 23rd, he was taken from the Tower of London. He was stripped naked and dragged through the streets to Smithfield. He was hung and released while he was still alive. They cut out his insides and burned them in front of him. He was then beheaded and quartered. His head ended up on London Bridge, and his limbs were displayed at Newcastle, Berwick, Perth, and Stirling. Later on, the Scottish were eventually able to win their independence with the pride of William Wallace. William Wallace was a great inspiration. He is one of the greatest heroes of the Scottish. A plaque was later placed at the wall of St. Bartholomew's Hospital near the execution spot. And then in 1869, Wallace's monument was erected. It is to believe to hold the sword that Wallace carried himself. Guys, I really appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, all that thumbs up stuff. You all know what that is. Also, if you guys have any other things you want me to look up and talk about, I would love some advice. Thank you very much for watching.